Okay, I will call the September 5th, 2023 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. Just for missing the August meeting, we'll ask Councilman Paddock to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vigneault,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Ellison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque,
Here.
and Councilmember Paddock.
Present.
Okay, before we move on to audience communication, is there any objection to amending the agenda to move the study session up after the audience communication before our old business and new business? Is that okay? Okay, seeing no objection, we'll proceed accordingly. And with that, that brings us audience communication. I'll start in the audience. Anyone like to address the council? Oh, go ahead. First hand first. Tanis, go ahead. Name, address, in 3 minutes, please.
Good evening, Tanis Golbieski, 3005 146th Place Southeast, Mill Creek. I'm here to talk about an issue that came to my attention in the last couple of weeks and has snowballed over the last couple of days. I'm sure most of you are aware that there is a group of citizens who are very upset about the potential rezoning of single-family areas to include duplexes. A group has created a website and plans to hold a meeting next week to discuss the situation. I think it's fantastic that citizens are paying attention to new laws and taking the time to understand how they will affect us and how they will affect our city. Managing growth is one of the most important issues that we will face as we move forward into the next decade and beyond. Engaging and informing citizens will ensure that their varied needs and perspectives and viewpoints can be addressed. Unfortunately, there's currently a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about the issue, and people are spreading things as fact, which are at best untrue and at worst lies. I spent the last couple of weeks looking into the issue. I've spoken to several elected officials at the local and state level. I had myself attended several meetings where middle housing was discussed, so I reviewed my own notes, I reviewed the agendas, I reviewed the recordings, I read up on the law online, and I've spoken to several neighbors about what they know, what they've heard, what they're worried about, and it's really disheartening, some of the things I've heard. One neighbor told me that our single-family homes are now illegal. Another neighbor told me that they worry about their next door neighbor who just moved in a couple months ago and they seem to like it here and now they're going to have to sell. My own neighbor came to me distraught. Her home is one of the homes outlined on the middle housing survey map as one that, quote, may have the capacity to provide opportunities for middle housing in the future. Like I said, she was distraught. Having seen her home on that map, she felt targeted. She felt threatened. She felt that somebody, some greedy developer, was going to take away her home that she had worked so hard to provide for her family. We talked. I reassured her that no one can take her home. As far as I understand, our neighborhood would be exempt because of pre-existing HOA covenants. But most of all, this is not something someone can do to her. She owns her home, and this change in law can't change that. And it may sound like this is just a case of people being confused about this law, and I get that, but this is where it starts to be blatant misinformation. She was told that the Mill Creek City Council voted for this. The other neighbors that I spoke to echoed that. This is a city council directive. This is a city council plan. City council is doing this to us. The website that I mentioned states, and again, I quote, your local government wants to tear down this Mill Creek home with a picture of my neighbor's home, and maybe yours too. The conversation devolved on social media this weekend. I hesitate to even bring up social media. I feel like it's kind of petty, but it devolved so far that the message became that certain council members were acting from some sort of hidden agenda, that they were furthering their own corrupt self-interest. It devolved to the point of name calling and really disturbing things being posted. There were a couple of moments yesterday that I did not feel safe in my own home. I think that these conversations need to be addressed. I would ask that the city make a public statement to provide clear answers to residents about what has and has not been voted on by City Council, provide a public forum in which residents can ask questions and be reassured of what is or isn't happening. These residents are asking for transparency and they deserve it. And finally, I would ask that as we speak to citizens, as you speak to citizens, staff and council, please keep in mind that there is a lot of fear out there. Let's remember to treat each other with respect and compassion. My neighbor deserves that, and we all deserve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanis, for bringing that up. And I'm going to address this really quickly because a few of us has taken up an inordinate amount of our time over the several days. The city has been entirely transparent about what is and what is not happening. Last October, this council voted unanimously, the 6 of us that were here, to accept a grant from Commerce to look at missing middle. So we had the information when we go to update our comprehensive plan on what our options are that we can. That was before 1110 was adopted in the legislative session this past spring. That study was not intended to show how 1110 could be implemented. It's simply a mathematical exercise of identifying properties based on their size, whether they could be subdivided or whether they were underdeveloped so that they had the capacity, as Tana said, to be used for missing middle housing in the future. I think the people that are out raising this issue are forgetting that the 7 of us lobbied hard against 1110 and having it applied to the city. We argued it shouldn't apply. We argued for local discretion because we did not want to be told how we deal with this growth. And partly due to our efforts, we were successful in minimizing the impact on our city. We now only have to plan for 2 dwelling units per lot instead of I can't remember, it was 4 or 6 units that were in the original versions of the bill. So we fought against 1110 and the missing middle housing. I wasn't even aware of the map that everyone's referring to until about 3 weeks ago when I heard this was percolating out there. That map, and I've started to hear rumors that the city is planning to condemn and take these properties and give them to developers to redevelop as duplexes. And that is patently false. The council has not even been presented with the study. We were told that it had been completed when we had our joint planning session with the Planning Commission in, I think it was late June. We have not taken any action, had any discussions whatsoever on how to implement or whether to implement missing middle housing in our city as part of our comp plan update. So it's frustrating when I see a flyer now getting circulated that says, quote, as Mill Creek Council recently identified 19 homes in the MCCA as good opportunities for redevelopment. That is demonstrably and patently false. We have not taken any action, not to mention the fact that under 1110, we don't have to and can't because it's part of an existing HOA. So I've reached out to the person who I understand is stirring this pot and tried to present her with some accurate information. And I offered to attend the meeting on the 14th so I can answer questions and alleviate people's concerns. We are going to have a very spirited discussion over the next 16 months on how we accommodate growth. I'm under no illusions that people have different opinions on what we should and should not be allowing. But we're not going to have a rational discussion if we can't even agree on the facts. And it's very frustrating to see people out there spreading disinformation and misleading and frankly patently false information about what is and what is not happening. So thank you for raising this. I've had another property owner reach out to me and exchange emails. I'm hoping to speak with him tomorrow. We do need to have some more forums to help educate people. I have not looked at this website that people mentioned, but I did go look at the portal again. And the portal very clearly says, and I'm quoting, "This project will not result in any changes to the City of Mill Creek code or policy, but the information gathered could help inform decisions in the future." So I'm a little bit at a loss how this information that's been posted so clearly as purely information has been interpreted as being action by this council to identify properties to be redeveloped for missing middle housing. It's just, again, patently and demonstrably false. So we need to do a better job, I guess, of educating the people. And some of us have been working to do that. And hopefully I'll get invited to attend this meeting on the 14th to further clarify what is and what is not going on. So With that, I'll proceed with audience communication. If anyone else in the audience would like to address the council before I jump to the online. Yes, please, name, address, in 3 minutes.
I live on 151st Place, and I'm standing here because two of my neighbors are two of the properties on the list. I just wanted to find out, I appreciate what you just said just now to clarify things, but my concern is that buildable land report by Snohomish County, has that been recorded? Is it official public report? Because there's a problem with that if it is, because all those people that are on that, in the reports that I've read, it said none of this will be done, and you said in the future possibly. But right now, if some of those people wanted to sell their property here real soon, there is a Washington State real estate disclosure law that would require them to disclose this, and it could cause them some problems selling their property or not even getting a buyer to buy with this ambiguity hanging over them. So it would be nice if this was cleared up a little bit for all these people.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience today? Come on, commit. Is that a yes, Barb? Okay. Barb, name, address in 3 minutes, please.
Barb Heidel, 1401 144th Place, Southeast. Sort of hate to change the feeling that's going on, but I want to say a few things. Thank you, Mayor. This is in regard to our National Night Out that I worked hard on. Our 2023 National Night Out was a big success. We had over 800 people attending. I wish to thank the fantastic vendors who donated their time and free food and drinks, like Starbucks, Nothing But Cakes, the Myers family with their huckleberry kettle corn, Kiwanis with their water and juice, and the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce with their grilled hot dogs. To all the supporting organizations who had booths, thank you. I also wish to say a big thank you to Scott and Jody for all their help, for helping me plan, getting the word out through social media, setting up, making sure all was going okay, and taking down. And cleaning up in the very end. With the help of the Youth Advisory Board, setting up, manning the city booth, and cleaning up, they are awesome. And the Key Club handling our 40th anniversary booth, which was a great addition. Without everyone's help, we couldn't have had such a successful evening. Thank you to all for doing so. I want to add another quick thank you to Joe and Jody for their help on the computer for me to write up a report I had to write up for National Night Out. Without their help, I don't know what I would have done, but they know how to do things that I don't. So I want to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Anyone else? Okay, online, Mr. Nelson, name, address, 3 minutes, please.
Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive Southeast, Mill Creek, Washington. Based on previous comments, my thoughts will be exceedingly short on middle housing. And that single comment I have is that in hindsight, might have been better not to have generated the map with the indicated properties on it. Second item, I looked at the new short list of consulting candidates for the strategic plan, and I thought that the 1961 company and Columbia both had some worthwhile items in their proposal that were worth considering. However, I did not have the same thoughts on BDS. I noticed they were prominently displaying pronouns, and also had a picture of two of my least favorite politicians outside of Donald Trump, meaning Nichols and Gregoire. So my concern with that company, BDS, would we be getting nothing but dogma out of these people? Anyway, my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else? Last chance before we move on. Going once, twice, three times. Okay. Brings us to our study session. Ms. Brock.
All right. Good afternoon, council, mayor and council. So the city holds planning retreats to set annual priorities and create 1 to 5 year goals. Council discussed taking a deeper dive into strategic planning and visioning to help decide what our community and council would like Mill Creek to look like in 10 to 25 years. The city is looking for a consultant to help council construct a long-term strategic plan for the next 10 to 25 years to serve as a guide for future decision-making. Council will hear from 3 consultants tonight that have said they're interested in helping Mill Creek with this long-term plan. I will be hearing from 1961, followed by BDS, and then Columbia Limited tonight. After each presentation, council will have time to ask follow-up questions, and then council may be deciding who they'd like to move forward with tonight. And so with that, we'll go ahead and start with 1961. So Rob, are you able to unmute? Do we have?
Laurel, how much time have we talked about? 15 minutes with each or no?
We did not give them time limits.
Okay.
I am. Thank you, Laurel.
So should we do 15 each? Is that, you want more, less, 15? Okay. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. So who is up first? I'm sorry.
It'll be Rob.
Mayor Holtzclaw, if
Yep. Go ahead.
if I share my screen, will everybody be able to see it?
We should.
Yep, go ahead and try it out.
Great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Fenty, and I'm a partner at 1961 Consulting. We are based in Portland, Oregon, and predominantly do work throughout the Northwest. Over 90% of our work is in Oregon and Washington. Mayor Holtzclaw, I have about probably 7 minutes of presentation, and then I want to give a little bit of time for questions if people want to engage on anything that I present. What I thought I would do is just give a quick overview of the firm and my background. I would be the one working with the city directly. One of the things that's unique about our firm is that all of our principals in the firm have held executive level positions. We consult because we're passionate about it, and therefore we work directly with our clients. So we're not a firm that has big support staffs that have them do the work. We engage very specific because of our expertise and the work that we do. I've been consulting for 20 years. I have 30 years of experience in all elements of strategy formation. Strategic planning is one of those words that's thrown around a lot, and it means a lot of different things. There's the visioning aspect, which I think you're very interested in, the long-term 10 to 25 year view of what is the city really going to be in 20 to 25 years, what will represent it, what will people think about it. That's different from then how are you going to make decisions over time? How does the council then stay aligned around decisions in context to that visioning? I think of that as a prioritization framework or a set of decision principles that you would use over time to make decisions. That's different from strategic planning, which is generally in a 3 to 5 year horizon. And then that's even different from how do you link it to operational decision-making on a day-by-day basis. The reason I pull those apart is because they have different approaches and there are different things that you need to do at each stage. And so I want to make sure that we set up an approach that's appropriate for exactly what you want. I have been leading strategic visioning and planning for many of the regions, cities, municipalities, metropolitan service districts, et cetera, for the past 20 years. I'll give you a specific example around the city of Camas, which is a good like-sized example in terms of a process that we ran. I've worked with several others, including the city of Tigard, big cities like the city of Portland, Multnomah County. I've also worked with organizations across regions like TriMet, the Transportation Bureau in the around the metropolitan area of Portland, Metro, which is an organization that runs parks, convention center, waste. And the reason I bring that up is because not only do I have an experience with facilitating clarity with cities themselves, but also how do you create partnerships with the various organizations that make a city thrive. And so I'm going to give a couple of examples of that, but I think there's value in the breadth of experience that we've had over the last 20 years, and we'll show that. One other thing that I wanted to highlight, which is different about our firm, is we also do research, and my body of research is specifically how leaders and constituents go through the process of prioritization and decision making, how they decide what's important to them, how they ascribe value to some things over others. And that's particularly important when we get into a process like this, when we start looking for council alignment around very complex topics like growth, or doing community engagement, where if you just simply ask the community what they want, you won't really get meaningful input. You have to be able to know how to ask them specific questions to know, is this more important than this? And really what you're looking for is what are the belief systems and the assumptions that are framing their decisions, so that you as city leaders can actually understand what those mean for decisions to come, not just in the heat of the issue at the moment. So this research will be important as we start looking at a community engagement process that's really powerful and impactful, as well as doing a visioning exercise where you actually reach alignment that you can make decisions around. So as a personal note, I happen to grow up in Southern Oregon. I grew up in a town just slightly bigger than the city of Mill Creek. I've touched pretty much every corner of the Northwest and really understand and value the importance of communities and their role. And so I come with that framework, although we're certainly, backed by our professional work. My personal schematic is really tied and passionate around communities that are the size of Mill Creek. So I have worked with a breadth of organizations around the region. I don't show you this just to show a bunch of logos, but I want to highlight the value of the intersection of that experience, because when I worked with past cities, it's not just the clarification of who does the city want to be and how does it set up a prioritization scheme around its services. The work with other organizations provides insight into the opportunities that the city may take on. So for example, my work with utilities and organizations like Energy Trust in Oregon, which distributes grants for renewable power, has given windows into how municipalities can partner with organizations like that to create transportation electrification, to move forward around renewable power installations, to do efficiency moves and sustainability, which I know is important to you. Our work with organizations that are community-based organizations, an example of that would be Albertina Kerr, is an organization here that serves the intellectually and developmentally challenged. So that understanding of the service providers provides insight into how the city can play its role of value and then partner with the service providers. So we take a systemic and holistic view of what's the role of value of the city and how does it deliver to the priorities and needs of the community and really optimize the way that those services are delivered. So in developing the priority scheme, we have that breadth of experience. I thought I would give you just a very high-level view of the approach to strategy. The first two boxes, I think, are the ones that you're most interested in up front. The first question is just, what's the long-term aspiration of the city? Who do you want to be? Questions that need to be answered here are, what will the city look like, feel like, be known for? What will it be described as 15 to 25 years from now? So it's not just, again, in the heat of a moment, but if you're going to wrestle with issues like growth, you have to have alignment around a view of where are you trying to get to and what is it that you're trying to create that people will actually ascribe what I call the markers, the things that they carry in their head that says, this is my home. So the visioning process needs to be very generative and collaborative to create this long-term aspiration and alignment around where you want the city to be in 15 to 25 years. The second part of this, which is really important, is some cities stop there with just creating a vision statement. And down here, we saw City of Tigard. We did work with them about 10 years ago, and then they carried forward and ended their work with a vision statement. And the vision statement ends up being a nice collection of words, but it sometimes doesn't provide the actionable teeth, if you will, that the council and the mayor and the city manager can then all execute in an aligned point of view. So this second box, what I call decision rules or prioritization framework, is very important to me. And that is, how do we turn that vision into guiding principles that you're going to actually base your choices and decisions on? And not only do you have decisions and you have decision rules that will align decisions in light of that long-term aspiration, but it carries forward over multiple generations of councils and mayors and city managers. It really captures the foundational beliefs and values that are living in the community. This is where community engagement is really critical. Some people want to jump all the way down to the what in the planning and ask the community, what do you want? Is this more important? Is this more important? But it's really understanding these foundational beliefs so that you have a window to what the community is really aspiring to be and what the underlying needs and beliefs are that frame that allow you then to make smarter decisions. So what I'm proposing in this is, before you get to strategic planning, it's these first two boxes that I think are the heart of the visioning process. Get really clear on a long-term aspiration of what you want the city to be, and then develop alignment around a set of decision rules that you'll actually can make choices around. So this is a process that we ran at the City of Camas. We were called in to do a strategic 3 to 5 year strategic plan for them. We stepped them back and took some work that they had done around their mission and values, just like you have, and really zeroed in on this question of, what do you want the city to be? And how does that turn into decision principles? Good example of that is they came up with a theme that said, the City of Camas is really tied to this concept of being integrated with the outdoors. So that became a decision principle for them, which now affects park placement, how many parks, the way they develop, the way they deal with growth and manage that conversation. So that was the way they internalized one of the principles, and they're able to have a conversation that way now in terms of when things come up, they have a backdrop to fall back on. So this is not meant to say this is the deliverable we would use. We'll customize the deliverable to make it fit for the city. I just want to show it as an example to say this is a way that, rather than jumping just from the mission or the vision statement to the now let's talk about what we're going to do, there's this layer in between that can give you more guidance over time and alignment, both from a leadership perspective, but also out into the community. So let me stop there. I would love to take any questions that you have and interact on what's important to you.
Thank you, Rob. I'm gonna wait and see which light flashes up. Oh, there we go. Councilmember Steckler.
Hi, Rob. Councilman John Steckler here. Thank you very much for the presentation. I've got a ton of questions, but to be fair, I can only ask like one right now and let my other fellow council members go in. So I'm not very fair, so I'll ask two. Just one, first one real quick. Rob, you said you're going to be our guy. Were you the guy on the City of Portland and the City of Camas, both?
Yeah, so
good.
Yes, City of Camas was actually both my partner and I, Holly, who and then yes, I did City of Portland as well.
Both of those. Here's the one I'm really most interested in. You said how you use research to prioritize objectives, which I loved. That was very fascinating. And the comment you made was you use research to gain community insight. Could you give us some examples of how you did that? That's fascinating. Rather than just saying, hey, community, do you want column A, column B, or column C? You used research. How do you do that? Give me an example of that.
Yeah, you've taken us deep very quickly. So think about it this way: that we're all running with these decision rules inside, which form what we believe is important. And if we just ask at the front, you may say to me, hey, do you want a park or do you want a community center? And I'll say, I want a community center. And you have no idea why. All you know is that that's the answer that you got. And so what the research says is, what we really want to understand is, what are the beliefs driving behind that? Is it connection and community that's the most important? Is it a sense of belonging? Is it, if it's really actually, I value the outdoors over community, then my answer might have been different. And so the way that I structure community engagement is when we go out first of all, we need to go out and reach the people, because if we just do surveys and focus groups, which are valuable, by the way, generally we'll get the same people and we'll get the same responses that you probably already know. So we want to get to where the people are, and then we want to ask questions in a way that we actually get insight to the why, what's really important to them and what's driving them, because it gives us a window to what's going to be important to them over a 10 or 20-year horizon, rather than just in this moment of time.
I understand. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Rob. Couple of quick questions and maybe a comment as well. I think we can all agree that this long-term strategic plan might be a bit unorthodox in the realm of this sort of planning. So not many people have any proof of concept to maybe roll out and show the council. What I gleaned from some of your comments, do you think, and I know you're here pitching for a job, do you think that without a clear vision from the council of what we want it to look like going forward, that this is maybe a cart before the horse situation?
I actually don't. I think it's the key first step in the process, in terms of you as a council getting aligned on what you really want out of this. And that's where my expertise can help you frame it into the steps of the deliverables. If you just said, hey, let's go build a strategic plan, and all of a sudden we're down in deliverables and what you want people to do, that's actually where I think you get too far ahead of yourself. This is going to be a stage. We want to peel away the onion on this. And the very first steps of this are the council getting aligned on what is your vision for the city, and how do you articulate that in this process. And there's a very important point that I missed in my description of the Camas examples, that what was critical in that process is we not only dealt with the council, we dealt simultaneously with in that case, the city administration, the city administrator and the department heads, because it was very important to me that the council's vision actually had insight from the city leadership, as well as we were doing alignment at the same time. So I don't think you're a step ahead of yourself. It's ambitious to say, let's have a 25-year strategic plan, because honestly, the world is changing so fast that any plan is going to evolve. It's not too ambitious to say, let's get a really clear vision of our city. What do we really want to create here? Because we're going to need a foundation around some very tough choices that are coming, whether it's growth or annexation, or just what you do with resources over time. And you need a decision basis for how you're going to navigate through those decisions in a connected way with the community, rather than a disconnected way.
Thank you.
Before I get to Councilmember Steckler, does anyone down at this end have any questions? Okay, Councilmember Steckler.
Okay, round two. In your write-up here, you talked about how you've worked the past several years with many state agencies down in Oregon and Washington Department of Commerce, Washington Department of Transportation. In your strategic planning, are there examples of how you have brought these state agencies into your planning and outcomes for the cities you've worked with? And can you give us examples of that?
To actually bring them in, connect them with cities?
Yes.
So less so with state agencies, more so with utilities and organizations that are publicly funded. An example down here is Energy Trust, which basically passes through all the dollars for renewable, for solar and resilience and renewable installations. So in that, there are a couple of examples. We've tied together cities with utilities to basically have conversations around EV charging. So you see an opportunity, there's a partnership that can be forged there. The utility has the ability to engage, and now you can basically facilitate a conversation to move forward around EV charging, island. The second is, there's a real brewing conversation where this is happening around resilience. And resilience is obviously a hot conversation because wildfires. There's a lot of dollars that are flowing both federally and state to fund community-based resilience pilots. And so that's another example where if that's very important to the city, those are easy conversations to make introductions and let those conversations go. That's not something then that I need to be in the middle of. Most often it's let's connect, people around the right priorities, get the right people in the room, and the conversations can move forward.
But if that were an opportunity, you could be a part, that could be part of your planning and.
Absolutely. The benefit of knowing the organizations in the region that I know, it's easy to make those introductions and facilitate the connections.
Good. Do I get time for another one?
Let me, Councilmember Paddock, and I'll come back to you if there's no other.
Hey, Rob, thank you. I had a question going back to the city of Camas example, and you had mentioned doing a 3-year strategic plan kind of in concert with a 20-year master plan. Can you talk a little bit about how those two came together?
Yeah, so they had actually just completed their 20-year master plan. And so as we were going through the strategic planning process, we actually engaged a lot with the department heads that were now, basically starting to implement that plan, and made sure that as we were integrating the decision principles that were in the plan, we're sanity checking them, because we wanted to make sure that the master plan was actually in alignment with what the council was signing up for in terms of decision principles. But as we got into strategic priorities as well, we effectively integrated those two to make sure that they were aligned. The strategic plan itself had a 3 to 5 year horizon, so it was really the first step of how to implement that master plan.
Thank you.
John, one last question.
One last question. One of the things I find interesting, you've worked with a big city like Portland, you've worked with a small city like, how do you pronounce this? Is it Camas or Samus?
Camas.
Camas, make sure I say it, Camas, which is similar to us. So, and you also brought up in Camas, you do a lot of work, which is unique, that you work with the local department heads as a focal point, which is important to us. Yes, we agree with that. So my question is, having worked with a large city and a small city, in regards to the smaller city, what were the most obvious benefits and most obvious challenges versus the larger city that you saw with the smaller city?
So I would say two things. One is, as a pattern, there's a lot more passion in the small cities. People live there, they're passionate about it. That has from my side of the facilitator, both awesomeness, if I can use that word, and there's some challenge that has to be navigated in that as well, because again, when that passion becomes at the level of solution, it can become right versus right. And so part of the process that I have to be aware of is, how do you get people down to the needs and the priorities so that you can get it back to a win-win and find a path forward. So I love that. It's one of the reasons I like small communities. I like to work with small communities. The other thing is just that there's a level of accountability and the ability to move, which is much easier than in a big city. The big cities just have a lot more, call it bureaucracy or checks and balances or hoops that they have to go through. So it's I have a strong preference to work with smaller cities because of that. I tend to be more action oriented. So it's let's get agreements and let's get clarity here that we can actually act around. I'm not satisfied if it's something that actually doesn't give you tangible results coming out the other side. So that's one of the reasons I was very interested to work with you.
I think the other reason why I like your research and desire to use research is because when you do have passion, people want to make decisions based on passion, and that sometimes cannot be the right way to make a decision. But if you can bring the research and data points in and make decision based on those and not just passion, that can sometimes allow you to make the correct decision.
Yeah, and it's actually a central theme going on or central discussion in leadership right now, that our ability to make choices is in the present moment. And so if we let the emotions of the past affect our choices in the present moment, we can go sideways.
Yeah.
So good decision making is being aware in the moment, what choices do I have? Let's honestly assess them, look for the right one based on my beliefs and my priority structure, and then we can go forward. So it's that same implication, just in a broader sense at a community level.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Who's up next?
BDS will be next.
Okay, I wasn't keeping track of the time, so I'm not sure how much we went with Rob, so let's do the same amount for BDS.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Good evening. My name is Andres Mantilla. I'm a partner at BDS Planning and Urban Design. I'm joined here by my two colleagues. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully that will work here. Can you all see that okay?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Great. Well, we have about 12 to 15 slides, but we're going to go through them pretty quickly. We want to also have opportunity for question and answer. And hopefully you were able to review some of this beforehand. As I mentioned, my name is Andres Mantilla. I am a partner at BDS Planning. For the purposes of this project, I will be project director, making sure that the strategic planning and visioning and community engagement is running smoothly, making sure that we are staying on task and on time, and working with you and the city staff. I'm joined by my colleague, Jacqueline Robinette, who is our organizational development lead and going to be serving as project manager. Brian Scott, who's founding partner and managing partner at BDS Planning, and we'll hear from both of them in a second. Not joining us today, but project support from our team is also David Garcia, who brings a lot of technical and research support to our team, and Skylar Benson as well. BDS was founded in 2009, and we really work in kind of four main areas. And really, when we you look at the diagram here on the left, when we have a project that meets all of these kind of four criteria and fits right in the middle, it's really the right project for us. We like to work on projects, plans, in processes that build vibrant, just, and sustainable communities. As part of that, we have kind of four main core areas. We practice and do a lot of consensus facilitation. We'll have a couple of project examples to discuss today. Importantly, for us, we have a knack for finding common ground between voices that are not typically aligned. In all of our plans, in all of our processes, we're often confronted with clients that are trying to work through conflicts and build strong coalition. We don't shy away from conflict. We think actually conflict is a important part of growth. It actually builds a stronger, more empowered community and a better product and better plan at the end. And we are often building coalitions among unlikely partners around contentious public decisions and policy initiatives. We also specialize in inclusive process, community engagement. I myself have most recently served as 4 years as the director of the Department of Neighborhoods at the City of Seattle, that led on a lot of community engagement processes for the city, ranging from issues of housing to public safety to homelessness to growth, and really seeing the connecting the dots on those engagement topics and how they're impacting our communities. We specialize in organizational development and strategic planning. We like to say that figuring out how to get things done is just as much as fun coming up with the ideas in the first place. We practice a dynamic form of strategic planning. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a second. And we really like to mold organizations to ensure that that a plan doesn't just sit on the shelf, but it ensures implementation and lasting change. And at the end, we work a lot with place management organizations, both in downtown areas, in park organizations, in waterfronts, and place management districts, including business improvement districts. BDS is from and founded in Seattle in 2009, but we've grown to a national portfolio. You can see on the left in the orange the states that were highlighted where we're doing active work and planning in, specifically in downtowns and neighborhoods of all sizes, major cities, smaller neighborhoods, similar to Mill Creek. And then other type of strategic plans, including emergency strategic plans for 911 centers and other downtown transportation alliances. I'll turn it over to our founding partner, Brian, to take us through the next couple slides. Brian?
Thank you, Andres, and thank you for drilling into this image. While we do some work across the country, our roots are in the Pacific Northwest, and most of our work is in the Pacific Northwest. I founded BDS Planning in 2009, but I've been in the visioning and strategic planning business since 1980. Much of the first 30 years of that work was in my home state of Oregon, much of it working statewide with communities of all sizes across the state. By now, I've worked in communities ranging from 1,000 people up to several million people. Lots of different dynamic for that. You've been talking about your vision for the community. I think that vision is very important. My first major experience with a vision was in a town of 1,000 people in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, where they envisioned a long-term future for the town and completely changed the town to live up to that vision. I facilitated a 25-year vision for Central Portland in 1998. More recently, we've done community visions for Burien, Washington, and Tacoma, Washington. We've also done strategic plans in communities of various sizes around the Northwest. Next slide, please, Andres. So a strategic plan, we're pretty deliberate about it. It's probably about a third of the work we do in the whole firm or more. Jacqueline will speak momentarily. She manages many of those projects. We think there are three basic parts of a strategic plan: the foundational statements for an organization, a vision of what's your vision for the community and your vision for the organization itself. What's your mission? What are your guiding principles, your intended impact? And some organizations choose to make a statement about their commitment to equity. Then the strategic part of strategic planning is really deciding what your key priorities are. I'm a big fan of 3, 4, 5, 6 priorities. If you're doing it with us, we won't let you get away with having 15 priorities, because if you can't remember them all, when a citizen stops you in the grocery store, you might as well not have any priorities. And then each priority has a goal that shows where you're trying to get in that priority area. Each goal has a series of tangible, relevant, measurable objectives with some actions and performance measures to see if you're getting there. That's the tactical, operational part of those plans. And we've, as Andres mentioned, we've worked with lots of different types of organizations on strategic planning. Municipal strategic plans like yours in recent years include Issaquah, not so far from Mill Creek, Tacoma, Salem, Oregon, McMinnville, Oregon, where we've been working pretty steadily for the last 5 years as a community of similar scale to Mill Creek. And we just followed up after doing a strategic plan for that city a few years ago. We did a strategic plan for their utility, the municipal utility, and then facilitated just last week a joint session of the Utility Commission and the City Council to make sure they're all on the same page moving forward. Andres?
Thanks, Brian. A key piece to our approach to strategic planning is what we root in what we call consensus facilitation. To us, we really make sure that we understand the different perspectives, the different kind of must-haves of different stakeholders, from your community to your department heads, to your council members, to business leaders, understanding where they're coming to the issue. And we have clear communication throughout the process. We like to say that we are substantive facilitators, meaning that we're actually going to not shy away from elephants in the room. We're actually going to lean into that, because to us, a strategic plan or a vision that doesn't tackle the biggest issues that you're facing right now is not really it's not really worth your time. You really want to make sure that it's giving you a roadmap of how you're going to actually tackle some of these issues, and doing it in a way that you have a working consensus of your community and specifically your council. To do that, what we like to do, and you see here in the graphic on the side, is we layer in one-on-one meetings with council members and key stakeholders in between meetings, in between sessions of the strategic plan. So we're better informed as facilitators. So we actually approach a meeting understanding what the main topics are, and so that we can move the process along in a way that isn't a 18-month process, that it's really kind of concise, efficient, and effective in a way that doesn't reinvent the wheel, where things are already working well with some of your constituents and some of your engagement strategies. We don't try to reinvent that wheel. We actually, in small towns, it's really important that we're not asking community members the same questions over and over again. Community members, in my experience in leading a lot of engagement, don't live their lives as like, Monday is my day that I care about public safety, Tuesday is the day I care about growth, Wednesday is the day I care about transportation. They're living all of these concerns at the same time. So what we need to do is make sure that we're understanding where your engagement is already happening, where is it working, where there are gaps and where there are opportunities, and bringing that all together and feeding that into the strategic planning process. We can talk more about that in a second. I did include a slide here on community engagement because it's a real big passion of mine. I think we, through the years, as Brian and I have worked together, we really have a good rhythm of how we're bringing in community voices into strategic planning efforts. I have a hard rule with strategic planning that if we work together, I would challenge you on this. As you are engaging community members, you should be prepared to manage expectations of participation and engagement. And what I mean by that is sometimes in a lot of these processes, you're asking a lot of questions to get data that's actually not useful to you to make your decision or to the community. Actually a waste of folks' time. You want to make sure that you're bringing in the information that is relevant to the plan and the issues specifically that are important to you. So for example, in Tacoma, in a community in Hilltop, economic opportunity and workforce and local hire were really important. So we went and tailored our engagement plans specifically to those communities and specifically to those questions around what were the barriers for hiring and accessing jobs. What kind of supports that they need. Working in Redmond, we did something similar. We have a lot of experience doing community engagement around middle housing. We worked with Commerce and worked with other cities and other associations, including the Association of Washington Cities, to kind of discuss and deliberate the impacts of the middle housing legislation and what it would mean to different cities and of different types of sizes. We have a lot of experience doing community engagement around supportive housing and permanent supportive housing and other housing authorities. So for us, if you're going to ask a question to the community, you have to be prepared to deal with that answer, whether you agree with it or not. Disagreement isn't a bad thing here. It's actually helping you prioritize what's going to be important and what the vision and strategic priority is for the strategic plan. We did include here a list of public decisions because this is something that we think about in our consensus facilitation. In each of these, when we engage with them, and Brian in the founding of this, the Alaskan Way Viaduct was in 2009. We approached a political space and a community space where people were opposed to one another, didn't have consensus or anything close to consensus. And through our strategic framework and our facilitation, we were able to bring people to a working consensus. It didn't mean that everybody liked each other. It didn't mean that they agreed on every issue. But for that specific issue, for example, the Alaskan Way Viaduct removal that ended up in the Deep Port Tunnel, they were able to live with that solution moving forward. We just recently completed the Seattle Maritime Industrial Policy for the city of Seattle. That was very similar, where you had some neighborhood interests with the Port of Seattle interests, with business interests, with city, that were really kind of at different ends of the spectrum in terms of the issue that was important to them. And through consensus facilitation model and really doing that individual engagement, we were able to come to something that they could live with and be able to move forward in a recommendation to this to the mayor of Seattle. Brian talked about the 25-year vision for Central in Portland. We also have other examples here that are a little bit more recent of working with King County through their sheriff hiring process, where we were working with law enforcement agencies and associations and families and individuals that had been impacted by police violence. And everybody in between to really come together to a solution that that they could live with and moving forward. And now King County Sheriff's is Sheriff Patty Cole-Tyndall, largely based on the process that we help facilitate. So we highlighted that for that reason, and understanding that at times the council and the community are going to start from different spaces, but really, we really excel in bringing and building unlikely coalitions to a common goal here. I'll turn it over to Jacqueline to take us through strategic planning here in the next couple slides.
Thanks, Andres. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Over these next few slides, I want to dive into a little more detail of what our strategic planning approach looks like. From our perspective, strategic planning is a deliberate, disciplined effort to produce fundamental decisions and actions that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it does it. We think that this process envisions a future, develops goals, objectives, and actions to achieve that future. We think it's important to clarify that strategic planning is not several things that people often think it might be. It's not a method to predict the future. Even at the shorter scape of a 3 to 5 year timeline, things are going to change. No city creating their 2018 5-year strategic plan put a strategic priority in about how they were going to address a global pandemic. What a strategic plan should do is also not, it's not a substitute for the judgment of leadership. Things are going to come up because a strategic plan is also not a smooth, predictable, or linear process. It's not a list of everything you do. However, it's a document that describes where you want to place disproportionate investment and help guide those important leadership decisions. So this graphic here sort of illustrates a potential of what a Mill Creek strategic planning process might look like. Brian, in a previous graphic, kind of spoke to these 3 components of a strategic plan that are the foundational, the strategic, and the tactical. Our approach breaks those 3 things up into kind of 3 sections. There's an assessment phase of who we are, where you're thinking about your foundational statements of that mission, vision, guiding principles. We help kind of dive into that who we are by thinking about what are the current conditions. We conduct a variety of interviews. We anticipate coming up, being on the ground in Mill Creek frequently, doing a variety of background research and sort of familiarizing ourselves with context. That sort of ends in what many of you are likely familiar with as a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, SWOT analysis. We work sort of through that assessment. We move into the planning phase of where do we want to go. This is where we identify those areas for disproportionate effort. We think about the strategic priorities of the plan. As Brian mentioned, we think that limited priorities are best because that's the way that you're actually going to place priorities. Once those priorities have been identified, we'll work in that iterative model that Andres referenced as well, with a variety of smaller groups and key stakeholders to think about the detail of how you're going to, how are you going to get there in that implementation phase, excuse me. Sort of that entire process, as you can sort of see that top line, is guided through regular iterations of, we have this stand-in phrase of a leadership group, depending on organization, likely would be council and key staff potentially, who are sort of iteratively coming back to each of these decision points and advancing towards that lovely, you can see that could be you in just a few short months, celebrating the approval of a strategic plan that, as we've also mentioned, is not just a document to go up on the shelf, but through this really intentional process, everyone is so bought into this plan that everyone's going to be regularly referring to it as you think about the advancement of Mill Creek into the future. And then there's just one more slide on some details here when we come to actually how we're going to go off about getting this done. We really believe in a deliberate kickoff meeting where we're bringing in all relevant parties, making sure we're on the same page. We've already heard from one council member's earlier question of a little bit of an unconventional approach, making sure that we're starting things off on the right foot with everyone on the same page, but also beginning with the end in mind. What is that vision, that long range vision we're working towards? That being said, throughout the process, we anticipate we remain focused on that end goal, but have flexibility for adjustments as needed. We work towards a clear deliverable, sort of as outlined through that process. And then myself, not only as organizational development lead within the firm, thinking about the higher level strategy, I'm also accountable to all of those nitty-gritty details of making sure that we stay accountable to you through daily time and task tracking and regular check-ins, working closely with council members and also city staff.
So this is the last slide, just to kind of summarize why you might pick us and why we think we're the right team. We have decades of experience in working with governments, within governments and outside of governments, as clients and as part of governments and organizations. We have a track record of finishing projects with high class satisfaction all through Washington, the Puget Sound area, in the Pacific Northwest. We think we have a very dynamic and inclusive approach to facilitation. Again, that consensus facilitation and top tier experience in public sector strategic planning. So with that, I will take the slides down and be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We have time for just a couple quick questions. Anyone? Councilmember Steckler.
Thank you. Very good presentation. I'm going to do one question. Overall, in your presentation, a lot of things I liked about it. One of the things in particular was you did spend some time talking about the fact that in strategic planning, you need to be able to articulate the vision and mission that we're going after and make sure that everything relates back to that in the execution of that, including the priorities of that strategy and creating a tactical action plan that executes against each one of those. I really like the fact that you brought that out. But my question here is, I got confused as we go through. Okay, great execution, but I didn't really understand how do you execute the consensus facilitation? And like I looked at your strategic planning slide and I looked at your project appraisal slide, and I didn't see how the two came together. And maybe you could help me with that. Help me to explain how these two slides, they should relate to each other. And I didn't see how they did. So
Yeah,
how do those work well together?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And maybe I can start, and then Brian, if you want to add here. Between every session and meeting in each of those phases that we mentioned, the assessment phase, the planning phase, and the implementation phase, we were in regular conversation with council members, with city staff, with top stakeholders, with community leaders and organizations regularly, not one time at the beginning and one time at the end, but it's in an engagement process to understand as things are coming up, what are their must-haves, what are their concerns, what are, where do they want to see certain issues go. It's very often where we're in a room with council members or with community members, maybe some community members are in rooms with you, and they might not say what is immediately on their mind, or you might not want to say that in kind of a group setting, and it's more appropriate or more available in a one-on-one setting. This happens a lot of the time when we say, okay, here are the things that came out of this last meeting, but we really want to ask you specifically about what is your opinion on X issue and what do you really need out of X issue? And so that conversation helps us as facilitators be better facilitators, not waste time with issues where there's agreement, and really go towards where there's those disagreements or maybe lack of clarity to be able to inform the process. So we're having those one-on-one meetings throughout the whole process. Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that was a great answer. Council member, I think essentially we're proposing that we would meet with the council 4 times, and we would be looking to try and make sure that everyone on the council can live with each of those steps. So we're trying to bring you to consensus at each of those steps, so there aren't any surprises on the way. And I never feel good about a process if we win on a 5-4 vote, because that feels like it's just an invitation to have another argument tomorrow. We want to get everybody on the same page. So the primary place for consensus facilitation in municipal strategic planning is at those 4 council meetings.
So you, maybe I could articulate that question better. If we started in the fall, you would envision seeing us completing all the strategic planning, including the tactical execution, by the end of March?
That's really entirely up to you. In my experience, it's never the consultants that can't go faster. It's always the government entity with all the complexities of your schedules and everything. We need to have 4 council meetings, and between the council meetings, we need to have a number of committee meetings and things. And, conceptually, we could do that in a couple of months, but you won't be able to schedule all those meetings that fast. So in our experience, it usually takes 6 to 9 months, depending on, how complicated the client makes the process.
Thank you.
Anyone have one final question? Oh, he's turned off his light. I thought he's turned it on again. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thanks. I was just curious if you could just elaborate a little bit further on your process that you use to involve stakeholders and community members in the planning process, because that's something that's extremely important to us, that we're getting out and having some community engagement and some non-traditional avenues of community engagement.
I want to make one observation, then I'll let Andres and Jacqueline build on that. But first of all, recognizing that for municipal strategic planning, the place to engage the community is at the vision and priority phase. It's early in the process, agreeing on the big picture about where you're trying to go. When you get to the end of the strategic planning process and you got a bunch of goals and objectives and actions and measures, people, they're not going to engage at that level of detail. You know, you go out and the first thing, and they're going to tell you they don't like getting caught in a congestion at this intersection. And then you do your plan, and whether you addressed it or not, you have the engagement at the end, and they're going to tell you that we don't want to be in the congestion at that same intersection, because that's what's on their mind. So I'd say early in the process. But Andres and Jacqueline, you want to talk about specific techniques?
At the beginning, we really work with you and with the staff, with the council, to understand kind of what are the current conversations that are happening, and we don't have one engagement answer for a community. We understand that different, small businesses are going to engage different than senior organizations or the youth organizations. Small businesses are going to be available to talk to you at odd hours versus an organization that might hold more of a 9 to 5. So we really work at the beginning in the assessment phase to develop what we call a menu of engagement option for the client. And that can be all the way from research-based focus groups, one-on-one, small group meetings, online meetings, breakfast type meetings, to more in-depth engagement where we're working with trusted organizations. And we've had great success, for example, in the city of Burien and in the city of Seattle using the trusted advocate model, which could be something that you might be interested in, where, as much as we want to be as government, and I've been in the government shoes, is available to community members trust each other first. And so the trusted advocate model says working and partnering with members that are trusted within that community to bring in engagement and ideas. And it's been successful. It's a national model. And so we really would come up with a menu of engagement options to do that. We like to tailor our engagement options. We town halls or traditional types of meetings typically result in the same kind of voices, honestly. And so we really try to, sometimes we can't shy away completely from that because it's a requirement, but we try to actually add to that with some vibrant examples, like, for example, the trusted advocate model.
Thank you.
Thank you to the BDS team. Appreciate the presentation. And Laurel now is
We'll be hearing from Drew with Columbia Limited.
oh, there he is. Hey, Drew, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, and thank you to you and Mayor Pro Tem, all council members, staff, and citizens. I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to visit with you again, and also just a quick happy anniversary. I'm a couple of weeks early, but the 40th anniversary of Mill Creek is coming up at the end of the month. So thank you for that. In an earlier presentation and also in my written proposal, I also quoted Stephen Covey's one of the 7 habits, which is to begin with the end in mind. And as I understand the purpose of this evening's discussions, you're talking with potential consultants for what I'm going to go ahead and call, with an early vision for what you're doing, Mill Creek 2050, a 25-year community visioning exercise. And I do view this more as a community visioning exercise than anything else, and I'll explain why as we go. A second quote for the evening is Albert Einstein, that imagination is more important than knowledge. And I think that what you all are doing as elected officials retain professional executive local government leadership in your executive staff and the community is trying to replicate Mill Creek's success from the 90s and early 2000s with the Town Center project, which transformed your community. And you're looking for the next bold move, and you're trying to ask your citizens what they think that vision is, and you're looking for the right consultant to help you do that. By way of background, I too am a seasoned local government professional. I've spent 24 of the last 26 years in local government in the Western United States. 19 of the last 20 years, both full and part-time, have been as a local government attorney. I have ears that others may not. For example, in your introductory public comment period, I understand House Bill 1110, the missing middle housing complex legislation. I'm already aware that the Senate passed that on a bipartisan basis and that Governor Inslee signed that on May 8th. And more importantly, the impact to communities like Mill Creek. I'm also an experienced local government manager. I spent 24 of the last 26 years, both full and part-time as a manager. I'm actually still a local government manager and attorney on a part-time basis for a government district here in Colorado. And then, as you know, I'm an experienced local government recruiter. I've spent 7 years this December doing that, and that includes, of course, Mill Creek, and having been retained by Mill Creek on 4 separate occasions in the last 5 years. Now, why does that matter? I think that matters because right now, sitting here right now, I have a very deep knowledge of Mill Creek, not only the community, but particularly your local government and its history, and both past, present, and hopefully somewhat with an eye towards the future. I have a window into the 40-year history of your city manager position. I'm aware that Mill Creek and your citizens and the public at large should be aware that Mill Creek has actually produced 2 of Washington's more noteworthy local government managers, Joni Earl and Bob Stowe, who've made tremendous contributions both to Mill Creek and the larger state, as well as your current elected officials and the recent history there. I'm aware that you have 3 seats up for election in November. All 3 incumbents are running. Only one seat is contested. And I guess the reason I'm mentioning both the current state of your elected officials and your executive leadership team is that you have pending, and I stress this in my submittal, a pretty substantial to-do list. This city council has institutionalized an annual planning session. I think it's important for your community to be fully aware of what that means. And more than arguably any other mayor and mayor pro tem and council before you, you have set Mill Creek on a path towards organizational health and stability. And those retreats have produced multiple goals. You also have some things on the to-do list that are mandated, like what? Like in each of your last 2 annual planning sessions, you've already identified the need for a strategic plan, but for a much shorter time period and a more conventional time period, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan that would eventually break down goals and objectives. In those retreats, you also identified advancement of DRCC, the DRCC master plan, as well as the Mill Creek Boulevard sub-area plan. And you know, in addition to those things, you've got the regular business and legal obligations that also involve strategic planning in front of you. Like in the next 90 days, you have to tackle the mid-biennium budget adjustment for 23-24, second year. That will produce a budget book. And then, as you mentioned earlier in the meeting, an update to the comprehensive plan due December 31 of last year. That's a very long to-do list. And so what I would ask you to consider is that if you drill down a little bit at your current executive leadership team and their capabilities, at the end of at the end of November, your current city manager will have been the city manager in fact, both as an interim and as the actual city manager for 2 years. Your deputy city manager has been in her role for a little over a year. Your public works director has been in that role for just over 3 years. And before that was a city council member for 15 years. Your police chief, who's been with the city for 20 years, is coming up on his first year as clerk. Your city clerk has been in place for 5 months. Your HR manager, who has been with the city for just under 4 years, has been there for 5.5 months. Your finance director is coming up on about 9 months. And what I would suggest, the intersection of all of those points, the election cycle, your to-do list, and the assembly of your current talent, is you have exactly the right people in exactly the right places to do the things that you have already lined out to do, a 3 to 5 year strategic plan and all the rest of the things that I mentioned. My proposal differs from those of the two that you've heard already. And I would ask this council to consider an intermediate step before committing to a 25-year visioning exercise for the community. And that would be, I guess, my third quote for the night, which is, in addition to begin with the end in mind, imagination is more important than knowledge. The third one is to measure twice and cut once. And through the recruitments that I've done for you directly, all of you have shared with me deep insight into Mill Creek community government, elected officials and staff that I believe uniquely position me to come in and help you further define this goal. And with the end in mind of Mill Creek 2050, a 25-year community visioning exercise, I'm very confident that I can help you get there quickly. If you then turn to Columbia Limited to carry on what I would reflect back to you, I'm fully capable of doing that. I do not hold out my experience in this area to be equal to either of the two firms that you've heard, but I'm not sure for the purposes of the visioning exercise, I'm not sure how much that matters. I believe every single person on your leadership team that I named and all 7 of you have your hands full. And what I would propose to do is to come in, meet with Mayor Pro Tem, every council member, all the key leaders or some subset of that I named, as well as community stakeholders immediately, and to have some deliverable back to you December 1st. And that would include some community engagement. You didn't ask any of the consultants, I don't think, for any sort of deliverable specific or budget or anything like that. Right now, you're just talking to consultants. That's very much the Mill Creek way. And I understand Mill Creek as a very unique community, as a very complex community, both demographically, historically, and politically. I have navigated those waters successfully over the last 5 years for the opportunity to come back and do that again. You know, I've eaten many breakfasts at the Sawmill Cafe. The best apple I've ever eaten in my life was at Central Market when it was still called Central Market. And anyway, I'm prepared to answer all of your questions. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And I guess I forgot 2 quick things that I wanted to say. One of them is very obvious. I'm very direct. I'm very direct, and I am effective and retained regularly for that. And I think I also have the soft skills, the exact one I'm looking for. I'm extremely passionate about Mill Creek. I saw the call for this opportunity less than 2 weeks ago, and a general call for response on LinkedIn. I believe I have the inward and outward facing communication skills, expert level skills that you're looking for. And then finally, listening and critical thinking. I've done 100 executive recruitments throughout the United States, including between Kent and Everett, including 4 for you and 7 for Bothell and 1 for Lake Stevens. I know your neighbors. I know them personally. I know the history of those governments within Snohomish and King counties. And I'd love to put all that experience to bear for you. I'm honored that Arizona State University recently approached me to have me join their advisory committee, the School of Public Affairs, and their MPA program, far beyond the scope of my role as a recruiter. And with those final comments, I would entertain any questions that you have.
Thank you, Drew. Any questions? Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. Nice to see you again, Drew. I do recommend.
Thank you.
I do remember you from prior interactions with the city. So in listening to your long list of employee resumes and tenure, thank you for that. So what do you think are you basically saying, I mean, this is kind of the way I'm feeling, why I'm asking it this way. Do you think that until we as a council or a governing body can define really what we're looking for in a 20-year, 25-year plan, do you think it's possible to get something like that on paper?
Council member, that is honestly for a majority of this council to decide. And I think that step one is to develop a comfort level with the type of consultant that you're looking for. And I guess that's why I took the approach that I did. My personal opinion, knowing you, knowing a majority of you, knowing all of your staff or almost all the key staff, is you would probably benefit first from an intermediate step and a quick one, because I know this is a council priority, to better help you define what you're really trying to do here. And I say that simply because, with all due respect, you've had 2 planning retreats where you've identified a much shorter strategic plan, much more conventional 3 to 5 year time period, and that project has not yet started. So I think you're in a very strong position to capitalize on the stability of your council and your staff, to get the things that you already have on the to-do list done or substantially advanced before adding a multi-year, 25-year visionary process to that list. Okay, can you do it? Probably. Should you do it? That's for a majority of council to decide.
Thanks for your candor.
Other questions?
You're welcome.
Sean, any questions? One end of the dais has been unusually quiet tonight. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. Thank you, Drew. Were you going to close with anything, Laurel?
So at this point in time, we're really just looking for direction from council. If there is a discussion you'd like to have on, if you'd like to make a motion to recommend any of the consultants tonight, or if you would like some designated time at a different meeting. I do know we have a council member or 2 that'll be out over the next few weeks. So tonight might be the best time maybe to get initial preferences at least.
Yeah, remember where we're at. We had a couple consultants come before us on July 5th, and you guys asked for us to go out and shake the trees a little more, and kudos to Martin and Laurel. They shook the trees. We identified several more. We had conversations with 1 or 2 others that elected not to put their names in the hat. And there was a few that just didn't respond. So we came back, we got 3 more. So the other 2 that were previously interviewed, Patrick Ibarra and the Crux Consulting or Crux Consortium were still interested. So I think we have 5 choices on the table. And as Laurel said, I believe at least one of us is going to be out for a few weeks, so I think we should at least get some initial thoughts on where we're at tonight before we don't have the benefit of everyone's input. So with that, I'll kind of open the floor to, then if there's any discussion.
Do we want to take maybe an open? Would we consider taking an open vote tonight?
We can do an informal, just go down the aisle, and if anyone has any thoughts on anyone, if any one of them stood out to anyone, and I don't know if we'll see that there's consensus or not after just kind of doing an informal
Yeah,
discussion.
we could do that. If we had to pick tonight, is there anyone you'd want to pick? And if so, what
Sure.
would that be?
Sure.
Maybe we should start with the council member to my right and work our way down.
I agree. Let's start on the chatty end of the guys.
Yeah, because this.
Oh,
end of the
wait, no,
dais
wait,
gets-
wait, no, now she's chiming in. She wants to speak now.
Yeah,
Councilmember
okay, great. Let's
Duque.
start that end of the dais down there.
Oh, Lord.
We don't have to start on my end. I just wanted to, if it's okay with everyone, to set some, maybe a little bit of parameters when we're speaking about candidates, yeah, that, like, starting the word and then it dropped away. And making sure to focus on, what we like, and just trying to remain positive and focusing on that instead of disparaging anyone, because, this is their livelihood and their career. So if we can focus
Excellent.
just on that angle, I'd appreciate it. I don't mind starting, but I do like that, that Sean goes first for everything. So I will defer to Sean.
So last to give reports, but first to give feedback. That's interesting. Okay, 1961. I tell you what I really appreciated about that group was it seemed to me to be a bit of the best of the both of the things that we liked about those first two candidates. And I'll be very specific. One was that emphasis around visioning work with the staff. They seem to be very committed to community engagement. In addition to having experience working with public and private sector clients and having a very structured framework that seems to have been utilized time and time again, a lot of experience that way. So that was something that really struck me about 1961. I would say the thing that struck me about BDS, in addition to their using their pronouns, which I appreciated, was that obviously they're very local. I think they have a tremendous amount of city experience, and they also bring that structure to the case. One thing that I would worry about, not disparaging Councilmember Duque, is many of the examples that were used were very large and complex organizations. And I would be left to wonder where we would fit in that work plan. And I'll leave it at that for those two.
If you had to pick tonight, would you pick one?
1961.
In keeping with what I was going to go, actually open with exactly what you were probably thinking, Councilmember Duque. Great organizations all the way around. Starting with 1961, a couple of things I liked about them in particular, and I already talked about it, was their desire to use data and research, because one thing that we're a very passionate group, and we have a hard time making decisions because of that. And I always like it when somebody says, rather than, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Let's get into the data, let's get into the research, let's get into the information, and let's let the information make the decision rather than our passions make the decision for us. And so if the decision is we're going to go in this direction because of this data, and this data, that really appeals to me. And I think that really helps a very passionate group to actually come to a consensus. And so I really did like that. Conversely, when we got into BDS, what I saw missing from 1961 that was in BDS was the ability to, whenever you come into strategic planning, one of the challenges in strategic planning is you come up with these ideas in this direction and these goals and objectives, but it's the execution. It's always in the execution. And they really understood BDS that you need to have a tactical execution plan against all those objectives, or you've got a really great plan, but you don't know if you actually accomplished it or not. And they really focused on the objectives. So I like that about BDS. These are the two groups that appealed to me between these two. if I had to make a decision tonight between the two, I think in similar to your thoughts, council member, I kind of liked the experience that 1961 had with smaller cities, especially Camas. So I would go with 1961. It's my choice.
Vince?
Thanks, Mayor. Excuse me. I've kind of, over the last couple of months since we've been hashing this out on the council and listening to other people's points of views on the matter, I've kind of waffled a little bit. I struggle with, because the constant theme between every one of these agencies has basically said that in a roundabout nice way, that without a 3 to 5 year plan in place, how do you plan on having a 20 to 25 year plan in place? And everybody has had their own unique way of kind of phrasing that to us, and still we continue to charge forward. I know this project comes with free monies, and no money is really free. It comes from grant monies that we're utilizing, and while that's great, it's going to eat up a ton of our already taxed and stressed staff time. So I'm losing sight of the value in actually doing this project. I think until we can put pen to paper and put our current plan in place and have a shared vision for that short time span, I think anything longer than 10, 15, 20 years is just really fantasy at this point. So I'm not a believer in this process anymore as far as recruiting and bringing a firm on to give us ideas what the future might look like when none of us are going to be there to participate in it. I would much prefer, if we're looking for consultants to handle comp planning, that perhaps we do it in a much shorter construct or time span. Thank you.
Councilmember Allison?
So the three that were on the top of my list were 1961, the Majorando group that we heard from on the 5th of July, and Columbia Limited. Out of those three, you know, there were definitely some themes in the advice that they gave us. I can't totally disagree with Councilman Cavallari. It does seem like we have a little bit more work to do before we can go headlong into this really far out strategic plan. But I would be open to a process, right? Keep an open mind and walk through it. And out of those three, it actually is a toss-up for me between the Majorando group and the Columbia Limited. The focus on the smaller municipalities and really being able to identify with the space that we're in. We aren't a big municipality. We don't have big city problems. So I would have to think about it before I could pick one of those. I haven't decided between those two, really. That's all I have to say.
Councilmember Duque?
I really appreciated Columbia LTE for the knowing where we are, knowing how busy we are, knowing what's going on. And when I first looked over the presentations, you know, getting ready for this meeting, I was just like, oh, yes, that's exactly where we are. But I feel like that's why we keep getting stuck on things, because we're not able to, you know, really push ourselves to like make decisions in these like big picture ways. And I really enjoyed all of the presentations today. Enjoyed understanding their process, what they're working with, how others are dealing with things, and looking at their websites and, you know, figuring it out. I absolutely agree with Councilmember Seckler about the data. Everything you said, just on point about the passions and just making sure that we're looking for that information. And there was a couple, you know, key standout points for me from 1961 when it came to decision rules and decision making. I'm a huge fan of decision trees and making sure, I think that's something that when we do anything, making sure that we're asking ourselves, does this align with this, without, you know, making sure we're going back to what those core things are. That was very important to me, but also, I mean, I really, I took the time to, and I'm sure all of us have, I don't mean it to diminish that way, but looking at the websites and the case studies that they've done beyond the ones that were presented to us, I really appreciated BDS's website and, the work that they are, did with Linwood and Issaquah. And finding those examples, I thought, there were things that were very similar to us. If I had to pick today and we took a vote, I would feel very comfortable with 1961 or BDS. I think 1961 would have maybe a little edge over, just because there were things that I feel that we would have to ask ourselves, and I think that's there are opportunities there for us to figure it out. Now, I guess the question is for all of us in thinking through about what, Columbia LCD, what Drew shared with us about where we are, it's that reminder of we should be really thinking about what we're asking for as a deliverable and what we want, and being very clear that we are accepting that and that we are moving forward with that and that we're agreeing to it. And that includes having a good timeline and a schedule and being honest with ourselves that this is something we can complete. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually agree with Councilmember Duque. I am very happy with BDS or 1961. I think it depends on what energy, what concept we're looking for, depending on which one we would go with. I like the fact that BDS really focuses on their visioning and bringing us all together to come up with an idea and making sure that we're all on the same page. And they really tackle that big elephant in the room right up front. There was a lot of discussion on that. So I really appreciate that and think we're dealing with some huge issues that we're going to need to tackle. And I really, 1961, I think would, if I had to pick, say one, would edge me out because what I really like about 1961 is probably something different than the rest of you, that I really appreciate that not only do they bring together the community engagement that I'm so passionate about, but I really appreciate his business experience that he brings to the table. I feel like one of our things that we want to do is start to vision how we can work on economic development, how we could maybe create ourselves into a place to bring in business, what that would look like. And I really liked his business background and that could be helpful for us. And that would be something to the table that we don't have right now. And so I think, once again, I am perfectly happy with BDS if that's the direction I want to go. But if I have to pick between the two, I would pick 1961. And I do want to make a comment about the long-term visioning as well. This brought up because I hear what Drew is saying. But I know I've had conversations with the city manager and what he's looking for and what the mayor's looking for, and what I feel like city manager has a very valuable point in that he really needs our long-term vision in order to decide some long-term concepts that we need to deal with and where we actually want to go. And we need to decide that. Like, there's some major big things that we've got. We've got DRCC coming up. We're working on our comp plan. What do we want to be as a city in the long term? And then we need to come up with our core values on this and make this decision so that we can go back and then we can do our small term strategic plan based on those core concepts that we've came up with on where we want it to take us. So I actually think it's very important that we do the long-term visioning. It's what the city manager's recommended, and I can see the value that he is saying that we need in that. So that is where I would like us to say. So I would go with 1961, but very happy to go with the direction of BDS and what they bring to the table if that is the direction everyone preferred.
I'm going to pick up where the Mayor Pro Tem left off. I get a little confused when I hear we haven't set a 5-year plan yet. I thought we did at the retreat and identified our top priorities, or coming up with a master plan for DRCC, implementing the comp plan and sub area, whatever's decided on that, and putting together a strategic plan that looks beyond that 5 years. So where I do agree is I don't think we fully understand what that means yet, but I think we run in sand when we try to do this alone, and staff is overburdened, so we need someone to hold our hand and guide us through that discussion to figure out what it is we need. I found myself listening to the presentations, kind of thinking with each one, yeah, I could see them working with us on it. I would just say, I'm gonna go with my gut. I think, to me, I'm not gonna point to anything specific. I just felt right with 1961's presentation. It felt like a good fit to me. It's not that the others wouldn't be, it just felt like it was the best fit of the 5 that we heard from. So that is where my head is at. So I don't know if anyone wants to stew on this for a week. I heard, I think, some consensus with possibly one exception. But the floor is open if anyone wants to defer a week or go ahead.
Can I go ahead and just make a motion, see what
Sure.
happens?
Sure.
Mayor, I move to direct the city manager to negotiate a contract with 1961 to provide consulting assistance in connection with development of the city's long strategic plan.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just real quick, Mayor.
Yes.
I happen to agree with some of the points as far as presentations this evening. I do think that 1961 did provide us really everything you were asking for in this meeting. And to, I believe, Councilman Steckler's point, am I saying the name right? Malahandro Group.
Yes,
Yep.
I believe so.
So Mahendra, so they also seem to run neck and neck as far as I'm concerned. So I would support whatever the council is comfortable with.
And I just want to thank all those who applied and came and spoke with us, and thanks to staff for helping shake the trees to identify the candidates. And I think it's incumbent on us, and I think as part of this motion passes, our direction to staff is to make sure the scope of work that's negotiated addresses at the outset come to consensus on what it is we're working towards. Because if we don't, we're going to be wasting our time or our money and the consultant's time, and I guess our time as well. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. I believe you have your direction, staff. And thank you again to BDS and to Drew and to Rob for coming tonight, and to Patrick and the Crux group as well for.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you all very much.
So appreciate. Okay, that brings us to old business. Where's Mr. Socoloski? Is he online? Ah, there he is.
Oh, he just shows up.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff, audience. Tonight, right now, we're gonna talk about the City Hall upgrade for the telephone system. As you know, we started, council approved 2.5 million in ARPA projects in February, and part of that was 20K for our telephone project. And we started an RFP. And in September, and at the end, it pretty much closed up. I will summarize the whole RFP process and who proposed and the process of decision. So the RFP was issued in June. We had a pre-proposal conference where we invited people to come in and ask questions right here in the chamber. Then there was deadlines for questions, and then the proposals were due. This is a busy chart, but we think we fit a lot of important information in here. I recommend looking at the far left, the first column, which is sideways. The first kind of row is our current configuration with our system. And with deputy city manager and finance, we kind of decided it'd be important to look 5 years down the road. Really, you know, how much is this system going to cost us in the long haul? And TriTech proposed a pretty much an upgrade to our system right now with the same incoming connections that we have right now, which is a copper T1 PRI. The second proposal was from Firstline, and basically, again, just the MyTel upgrade, which differed a little bit in price. And then the third proposal differed in price significantly for a cost savings. So tonight we're going to be asking, you know, for council to approve the 20K for one of these projects, but we decided to go with the Firstline proposal 2, which is a cloud solution. That's why it's a lot less cheaper. All of the appliances are in their cloud, and we just, our phones go through the internet. And we had a feasibility technical study. We ran a program for 4 days, and it said that our network is ready for this solution. This is the grading matrix, which is required by ARPA funding. And as you can see, the Firstline cloud solution marked the highest with the 13.4 down there. This is just a quick summary of that solution. So we will be able to turn our city phones into our desk phones. This is something that our current system cannot do. All of us will be able to get desktop software to help, you know, with our daily calls and telephone work. And basically, so right now we're paying, part of this explanation when you look at the numbers is we are paying for a copper line that just keeps climbing in price. And they want us to get rid of the copper line to transfer over to a digital line. But this solution will eliminate that bill, and it kind of puts it with this new solution. So we're getting rid of one circuit, picking up a new one. And with that, I'll take questions. And if no one has questions, we can go to the resolution.
I have a quick question.
Any questions? Yes.
So I know she didn't have, you had zero underneath, conference phones, things like that. That's zeroed out because we're going to just use our old equipment. Is that right?
No, we are going to get new phones. That was part, we are setting aside. So we're going to, the initial cost is $6,444. That is for the installation, for them to help us port our current telephone numbers to the new system. And we are setting some aside for changes because we don't really know how many telephone ports are needed until we actually do the porting. And also, I mean, the Firstline quoted desktop or like reception phones or conference phones in the other one, but we'll probably have them change it if we decide that we need those. But so that will come in a change.
You had, in your other bids, you had hardware costs, but this one you did not. So you had like 2 and 2 and 2, and you had 0 and 0 down here at the bottom one. So I was just curious, are you not going to have hardware costs, or are you going to have hardware costs added later on?
The basically we're leasing the phones. I'm sorry.
John, are you referring to
Yes.
the zero by the startup cost?
Yeah, as you see down here on Firstline at the bottom, I've got a 70 down here for desktop. Then over here to reception and conference, I got 0 and 0, but in the other bids up above, I had phones allocated for those, and I had 0 and 0 for these. Is that because we were going to use our existing hardware, or?
Yes, in that instance, we would,
Oh, okay, that's my
but
question.
not the reception desktop mode. We would probably have to get to, I don't know why they didn't quote in that proposal. This just reflects what came in on the proposal.
Okay, so that'd be something, just find out, are we gonna be charged
Right,
extra?
we would address that in a change.
Okay. It was a bid, and they didn't bid them.
Other questions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Please do.
Resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Firstline Communications, Inc. for the replacement of city's telecommunications system in all its civil locations, and to appropriate up to 20,000 of the city's funds received under American Rescue Plan or ARPA to pay for the system implementation, including the initial monthly cost of the project.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Joe.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Ms. Lumbad.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff, and to the audience here at the council chambers, and also joining us virtually. I have another interlocal agreement with the Everett School District tonight. So as a background, RCW 39.34 relating to the Interlocal Cooperative Act authorizes local government agencies to make the most efficient use of their powers by enabling them to cooperate with other localities on a basis of mutual advantage, and thereby to provide services and facilities in a manner and pursuant to the forms of governmental organization that will accord best with geographic, economic, population, and other factors influencing the needs and development of local communities. Further, RCW 39.34.080 provides that such arrangement will be by contracts that are authorized by the governing bodies of both parties. The initial ILA for the school occurred in 1996, and we've had that relationship with them to provide the school resource officer program, and the most recent one expired last month. As a background, the school resource program is a community-focused policing policy. Right now, or previously in the ILA, it's at 2 locations, which is at Jackson High School and Heatherwood Middle School. The program provides the following benefits. So it promotes, it helps promote the student, staff, and public safety at the schools, and also provides a positive resource to students, staff, and parents on topics such as alcohol and drug trends, gang activities, social media, and internet safety. The proposed ILA covers the period from September 1, 2023 to August 31 of 2024, and it asks for 2 SRO officers during the school session. That's equivalent to 182 days. Again, the locations remain the same at Jackson High School as well as the Heatherwood Middle School. And the school, Everett School District will pay the cost of $289,784 payable in 10 equal installments from September to June. And the school board approved the contract, or the ILA, at their August 22nd meeting. Our recommendation is to adopt the resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Everett School District concerning the school resource officer program. There's a typo in there. I apologize. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
In lieu of any questions, I'd like to make a resolution, Mayor,
Make a motion.
or make a motion, not a resolution, make a motion to adopt a resolution approving an interlocal cooperative agreement with Everett School District concerning the Everett School Resource Office Program.
Officer.
Sorry.
Officer program.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a question for the police chief.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, of the 289,000 that the school district is recompensating the city for, how much of that covers the costs of both resource officers for both schools?
I would actually defer to the finance manager. I believe it's in the 70 to 80%. I'll have something.
So one officer is 100% funded and then 70% for the second officer.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just one point of information, if you will. I met with some of the folks from Everett School District on a completely separate matter. And one of the things that they had called out was the exemplary work that the SRO at Jackson does as like the gold standard for what they would like to see in the rest of Everett School District. It is not covered by the Mill Creek Police Department. I'm not suggesting that, by the way, Chief, but thought I would throw that out. Good work.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a very brief consent agenda tonight. It's council meeting minutes of August 22nd, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. City manager, your reports.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. First report of, let's see, we have a handful of reports here from city staff. I'll start off with the August break. It was a nice break to get a lot of things done and an opportunity for myself to attend the WCMA conference. It is the Washington City/County Management Association conference. Just a little bit about the organization, founded, I believe, in the 1950s, and it was founded to help leaders, city managers and county administrators and deputies to increase knowledge in the quality of work they do and the professionalism across a lot of functions across city leaders throughout the state. They also do encourage the development of relationships across those participants too. And this conference delivered. It was the first one that I attended. It was a good opportunity to meet other city leaders across the state of Washington, Kirkland, Bothell, city managers, and many others, 5 and representatives from Tacoma. I probably met 20 to 30 other representatives. And the key takeaways I felt going to this conference was not only developing these relationships, but having the opportunity to learn kind of key concerns and successes that they have been experiencing over the past few years since the pandemic. Another key takeaway from this is the willingness of both. There were a lot of new city managers, deputies, administrators across the state, along with ones that were very seasoned as well. Everyone was very open and welcome to exchange contact information, and so the network is invaluable moving forward. With all the new city managers that I've seen and the existing season, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for younger generations, I think, moving up in a number of years. I think the current list of managers, there's still a lot out there that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years that there's just a lot of opportunity out there, I think, for our future generations. So I'm excited to kind of hopefully carry that on. Two of the other key, there's two things about this, the week that I attended. There were 2 keynote speakers. One was Peter Kageyama, who, I'll try to make this brief, but he emphasized how important it was not only to think about a lot of things that we're doing here at Mill Creek in terms of rebuilding and the functional requirements that we have been focusing on, like the core business of servicing our community, but also
think over and beyond, not just what we're doing as a service, but the cost of not doing anything in terms of engaging our communities and creating that connection, emotional connection between our communities and our visitors that come into our city. So a lot of these things that I'm referring to are things that may not seem as of value that you pay for as a city. For example, structures and things that monuments that create that connection that many times are just kind of a no. It's something that maybe councils don't want to move forward with, but there is a cost to be boring and not creating that emotional connection. That's kind of something I learned. It took me a little bit to kind of get to that side of it, but I do agree to some extent. The other thing was the City of Vancouver had a good presentation on how they addressed encampments and homelessness across their city. There's a big push to address the issue in Portland and the neighboring city in the state of Oregon, and Vancouver is having to increase their staffing now, and they're creatively finding ways to incorporate individuals that were actually homeless at the time and employing those individuals into their navigation teams, where they would send police officers and staff social workers and staff out in the field to address the whole gamut of encampments and addressing the individuals that are homeless. So that's the report on the WCMA conference. I know I went kind of long on it, but it was very valuable experience for me. If no other questions on that, wanted to also bring up that we're happy to engage Marketing Solutions in facilitating our city annual priority process, our strategic planning in January. We will set aside 2 weeks end of January. I think it's the 23rd to 30th, I believe. So just keep that in mind. So we're happy to have Andrew back there. If no other questions on that, I'll go on to the third report, which is related to City Hall North and commencing leases on 4 additional tenants. We're happy to have the chamber in there. If you haven't been up there, the chamber's already set up their little office up there, and it's a pretty nice setup. Their doors are open probably 2 or 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. The other 4 leases are 3-year leases with a 1-year extension, except for one of them is a 1-year lease with I believe it's a year extension as well. The first 3 is Huntron, our existing tenant that we had in the past for a number of years. If you want to know kind of what they do, I can explain that later. Sorry?
He chuckled.
The second is Mill Creek Appraisals, LLC. They've been a current tenant for a number of years as well, so we're just renewing that lease. The third one is a new company called MSL. It's a company that it's a startup company. Mansoor Masoodi is the CEO and the founder, and he's bringing on the staff there, taking up 1,000 square feet in our warehouse, as well as 1,700 square feet up in the offices. Just real brief on MSL. They develop new technologies to reduce nitrogen oxide that's created by diesel trucks and fuels. It's a downstream exhaust system that takes, it's actually a mechanism that combines ammonium and with the nitrogen oxide that goes into the exhaust system, and actually the chemical reaction spits out, I think water vapor, carbon dioxide, and I think nitrogen. So they're trying to reduce the dangerous gases that are kind of going into the atmosphere. They have other technologies as well by reducing actually CO2 by creating some other infrastructure items as well, but I won't go into that detail. So we're happy to have them in our City Hall North, and they'll be executing. They'll be in on October 1st as well. And then the fourth lease is our representative April Berg. in our district here. So she'll be occupying about 100 square feet up in the same office that our chamber is located. So she'll have a window seat just behind the office of our director of the chamber. So these leases will be on our consent. They were uploaded in the packets for you to look at. So if you have any questions, we can answer those questions now, and our city attorney can do as well. But other than that, we'll have those on consent next week for approval.
Okay.
And if no other questions, we'll hand this over to our HR manager, Naomi Fay, to give some staffing updates.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Good to see you all. We've been busy here doing recruiting, and I'm happy to report that we have hired a maintenance worker. He started about 3 weeks ago. His name is Manny Ward. Next week, we'll have a deputy city clerk starting on Monday, the 11th. And then we will have a city engineer. Our long-awaited engineering team has been filled. So a city engineer will be starting on September 13th. Project Engineer 3 will be starting on September 18th. And finally, our Project Engineer 2 will be starting on September 25th. So we're really happy to have all those vacancies filled, and we'll continue to update you as we do more, especially for our police department. That's all I have.
And then the next on the reports is Director Todd with a quick report on DRCC.
Yeah, thanks. You can tell him, oops. Thanks. You can tell I'm happy that we finally have a team. This will be the first time we're fully staffed since about May of 2020. So this is exciting times. So it's exciting that we have staff. You can picture we're going to be doing next. Somebody's messing with our volume. You can tell we're going to be doing a lot of work onboarding over the next month, but I'm looking forward to a new team. 3 people who all live fairly close to Mill Creek, and so they feel committed to it. One of them, in fact, lives in Mill Creek, so it's pretty cool to have some people that are local and passionate about our community and knowledgeable about our community, but willing to come and work here at Mill Creek. DRCC, wanted to give a quick report. We talked about some of this last spring and summer before you took your break. A little bit of recap. We've done the surveying has been done. They did some early wetland discovery, and I think we showed you that map earlier. The wetlands and the buffers may be larger than we thought. There was some new exciting information if you're into wetlands, but not so exciting if you're into placing features and functions into a park. Remember that was rough mapping, and so talking to the project team, this shouldn't cause alarm. Some of those could be filled potentially or mitigated until we really decide what we're going to put in various places. We will not do a full delineation, because delineation, when you do it, has kind of a shelf life to it. But really, in discussing with the team, we'll probably end up with a phase development when we get done. So we'll figure out what phase is going to happen when, and do full delineation on those areas and decide what other processes we might need to do later. If you decide you want to mitigate or fill wetlands, it's a longer process. So that's the most expedient way to figure out how to get things started, is to kind of lay it out and then work from there. The other work that they have just got it started on, is a needs analysis. You may remember meeting Tom Beckwith was part of their consultant team, a very experienced guy who knows a lot about the marketplace. And so he's going to take kind of a macro level look at what the needs are in the broader community. And then we'll link up with him and tell him what the micro information we know, and that'll hopefully inform what things are already in the community, not just within Mill Creek, but the adjacent community. So if there's lots of fields or lots of recreation centers close by, you want to know that. Or if there's a dearth of those, you want to know those, because our target audience is not just Mill Creek, it's the greater Mill Creek, because it might be bringing people in to enjoy our community and leave a few tax dollars here, or just be part of the community and enjoy the fact that Mill Creek is a near neighbor to them. We had a draft plan from the community engagement aspect of this, and we put that essentially on pause during the summer. We had grand plans to have a community engagement through some of the events this summer, but we really ran into a bandwidth problem. Our experts on marketing communications, Scott and Jody, were also terribly busy with events during the summer. We discovered we just couldn't get enough bandwidth to really dig into that. So that's going to get restarted this fall. As we get out of the heavy event season, we'll re-engage on that. Remember, part of that is developing an advisory group. There's the senior statesman senior experienced folks that can help us guide through this process. Don't want to call it a steering committee, but kind of an advisory group that we'll bounce ideas off of. And we'll also have a long list of stakeholder groups. So the pickleball folks or the Frisbee golf folks or whatever. So we have a long list of those folks. So when it becomes time to engage with those folks, we've got that list ready to say, let's make sure we hit those. If people have ideas that we need to add to that, we'll add them, of course, but we're not quite at that stage. Happy to have engineers available. We'll get some planning folks because we got a new planning person added in this sequence of adding a part-time building permit coordinator that freed up some time for Justin Horn, who's now a planner. That's going to give us more capacity. The planning department's going to help out. I mentioned the Marcom. It's very important to this. The engineers coming on board is going to help out, and hopefully I'm going to have some time to help work this out. To me, overall, and I think to all of us overall, it's important not to just hire a consultant and have them take our wristwatch and then tell us what time it is on our wristwatch. This needs to be a project that's engaged with our community, engaged with you, engaged with these stakeholder groups so that it becomes a project for Mill Creek, not something that consultants just thought they heard and cranked it back out again. So there's a lot of work yet to be done on that. Take any questions if you have any on the DRCC.
Any questions? No questions.
And it wasn't in the agenda, but I'll make a couple of comments about the comp plan process. That was kind of where are we? We are in the process of getting started with that. The staff and OTAC, remember OTAC is our main consultant. They've been working together, sifting through a lot of population data, housing data, employment statistics, base maps, zoning, other reports that kind of set the baseline for the 2023 activities and going into 2024. They've got their first working session with the Planning Commission at their meeting in September, which is the 21st of this month. And they'll be discussing that base data and working plan for the next 3 months. And then staff anticipating bringing a briefing on the short term and the longer term timeline. And that results of that first briefing from council or from the Planning Commission to you in sometime in October. So if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer it. I think out of tonight's comments, I think it's important people understand that process. And so, Mr. Mayor and Council, if you want to have some other earlier discussions, we'd be happy to entertain those.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any questions? Any other reports?
No other reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a number of things to cover. August was busy, and as was the end of July. It started with attending the Philippine consulate reception, which was a lot of fun, as it always is. And I accepted amongst the plaque in a box in which there is 4 chocolate things.
Wow.
Now, I could have taken this home and shared it with my wife, but I realized I accepted this award on behalf of the city, so we'll share it all tonight. We can spread this around and enjoy it with staff and the residents. and
I
everyone
was
that's
told
here.
by the Filipino community that there was 7 candy bars in there.
Be glad I saved some for you. As Barb said, National Night Out at the beginning of August was a great success, another great event. At the end of the month, we will have Brett Gailey, the mayor from Lake Stevens, come. I mentioned previously that the coalition of mayors and business leaders is going to be looking for support again. So I asked one of either him or John Naring to be able to come and talk to you directly and answer your questions. So I think we have him scheduled for the last meeting of September. Had an interesting telephone call with Jared Mead a couple weeks ago, and this kind of plays off of the DRCC. You know, we're talking about what to do with DRCC, and one of the discussions is recreation needs. And a quarter mile way down the hill, we have McCollum Park. And so where the discussion went is whether or not Jared, myself, Stephanie, and the city manager and deputy city manager should at least sit down with him and Tom Teagan, the parks director, and see if there's any kind of joint planning we should be talking about for the park, to see if there's any opportunities there. So, and see if there's something worthwhile bringing back to the council to talk further about. But, you know, we have this kind of artificial boundary drawn between county and city that's just right down the hill. So we thought that would be a worthwhile conversation to have. Attended the Chamber Annual Appreciation Lunch in middle of August, another great event, had great weather, great food. Saw many of the staff there. Party in the Parks was another great event. Not when the weather wasn't quite as good as it was last year, but still very well attended. coming up on September 23rd, Saturday, I'll be attending, I think South County Fire is having a recognition event in Linwood in the morning that I will be attending on behalf of the city. And then I'll follow that up with cutting ribbon at a new brew pub down in the south end of the city, which I never knew even existed. I hadn't been past QFC, and there's a whole nother world down there. And then I'll end where we started. We started the conversation tonight talking about missing middle. I will just update you to let you know that I've received some messages during the meeting, and the September 14th meeting is apparently being canceled. They're updating their website, and I think Stephanie and myself and Mike and Martin will be working on providing some clarification for the website of what that map means and doesn't mean. I think we helped create a little confusion, so we need to help solve that. So that is what I have for tonight. Mayor Pro Tem, any report?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a report. I've had many iterations of a report over the past weekend. I think here's the report that I've decided upon. I think we need to be aware as council members that our words have consequences. We have to be aware that people's emotions in this charged political environment are really strained, and it does not take much to set them off. One of our top priorities is public safety. I would argue that that public safety also goes for our council members. When we use words that get people fired up with false information, we put the safety of our fellow council members at risk, and it is not okay. Furthermore, I would say, as we are looking at this information for the missing middle, it is imperative that we have factual information out there. Our legislative committee, myself, Councilmember Allison, and Councilmember Duque advocated extremely hard last year for our city, for the housing bill. And I have personally been accused of trying to take people's houses and not advocating after all that hard work I did. Now, I'm excited that everybody is engaged. They need to be engaged with facts. And the reason is we're not done. Next year, there's going to be a new session. And some of the bills that we defeated this year with our advocacy are going to be back on the table. And I'm going to need people in the city with factual information to go and write letters and stand up and advocate for what we need. But it needs to be factual and what we really need them to work for. And they're not going to have faith in me and believe in me that I'm fighting for them and that they need to do the work that we need them to do for themselves if they're being fed fake information and fake information about who I am and the work that I do. So I'm going to ask every single person up here that it is imperative for our safety and for our residents that we have factual information in their hands and that they understand the work that we're doing and how they can actually help us and be part of that process as we advocate for them when the next session comes up. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalieri, your report?
Thanks, Mayor. A couple of small ones. The first one is where we're at with with the Parks and Rec Board with an RFQ for Silvercrest Park. So if we can get some info on that, I have a Parks Board meeting tomorrow. I think they would appreciate an update. And as would I. And second is I did have a chance to participate in National Night Out, Party in the Parks, concerts in the Forum this whole summer. And man, we do these events really well as a city. I'm really proud the way we do these things. But in the last couple of weeks, there's a couple of things we haven't done well. And while there's some shifting of blame and some name calling going on out there, let's talk about a couple of them real quick. Number one, House Bill 1110. It's not fake news, it's real. Anybody that would like a copy, it's up here, number one. Number two, the city commissioned a consultant to carve out areas to be designated for middle housing. The map of those homes on our site is very real, nothing fake about it. The 19 people that live in those homes that feel like their home is threatened is also very real. So if there's pushback, then that's our fault for the lack of communication to this community of what House Bill represents and what our end game is. So as citizens rise up and maybe push back a little bit, it might be uncomfortable, but that is the process, like it or not. What we don't do is hyperbolize and villainize them for exercising their civil rights. I, for one, would stand every day with those 19 homes that are earmarked, which is what they are. If anybody would like a copy of the map, it's on our site still, I'm sure, unless somebody's taken it down. You can't be shocked that they're upset about it. And to have the temerity to come up to the microphone and just say that, well, it's fake news, that's so inappropriate, so inappropriate. Thank you.
Vince Cavallari. Stop. We're not going to engage in a discussion, but in terms of facts, the website also says if anyone has any questions about the information that's been posted since May 3rd, contact the city. I am unaware of anyone calling the city and saying, what's up? What's going on with this map? It wasn't until the last 3 weeks that something has come up. So we're responding to the controversy that others had created. We admittedly, and we've talked about it tonight, didn't do as good a job as we could of explaining what that map meant. But at any time, any one of those property owners could have reached out to anyone at the city or anyone on the council and asked, what does this mean?
When someone hurts my baby girl, I am not going to forgive you. I'm not.
So, Councilmember Steckler, any report tonight?
I did. Take a minute here to. Yes, I have a report. A couple things. First of all, I want to do a shout out to South County Fire, our new partners, and give them a pat on the back. I reached out to them not as a councilman, but as a director for Mill Creek Kiwanis Club, and asked them if they would help us on National Night Out. And we wanted to put together a CPR class for teenagers to teach teenagers how to do CPR at National Night Out. And they jumped at the chance. They provided us with the trainers and with the mannequins, everything. The response to the training was fantastic. In fact, we got to the point where we had a little bit of trouble because we were kind of pushing away the adults, and then we realized we shouldn't be pushing away adults that wanted to learn how to do CPR. So what we really found out was there's a great desire on the part of a lot of our citizens to learn CPR. So for future Kiwanis programs, we're going to be doing more CPR classes. I think there's an opportunity here for the city to do some other programs. Maybe we might want to add a CPR course, but this could become something that we could partner with the South County Fire and really do a lot more CPR training in our city, where Mill Creek residents are extremely well trained on CPR. It could be something really exciting that we could partner with the fire department on, and they really want to partner with us on it. I just was really pleased with their amount of support that they gave us. So just something I kind of wanted to spread the word, get it into the minutes here. Doesn't have to be a Kiwanis only thing. It could be a number of other organizations. It could be city organizations, but definitely I think there's some opportunities. We're going to continue with it on the Kiwanis side, but could be some other ones. The other elephant in the room is there was a councilman who's going to be unavailable. That councilman is me. So just for the record, I will be absent from next week's meeting on 9/12 for personal reasons. The following week is a bye week, and I will be attending the following meeting on 9/26 via Zoom. So I will only miss one meeting, but I will not be in attendance on 9/26, and I should be back in attendance the first meeting in October, but I wanted to kind of get ahead of that and let everybody know in advance. So I will not be here on 9/12, and I'm really glad we were able to have that conversation today about strategy. Thank you, everybody. I appreciated that. And that's my report.
Councilmember Ellison.
Just want to say kudos to everyone that got the staff hired. That's amazing. The whole time I've been on council, we haven't had enough staff in the engineering department. So I know that's going to make a difference for your throughput. So congratulations. I fell ill in August, so I missed several of the events that happened, but all healthy now, at least for another year. So thank you all.
Councilmember Duque.
Yes, my favorite thing to say, ditto to all the nice things about the events. They were fantastic. I actually had a note about how creative it was to have the CPR training. So that's just funny they had there, and how fantastic National Night Out was. I mean, I think everyone sees that. I always try to bring a big group of parents with me to all of these events, and we make it a big picnic. And I really love being able to promote our city events that way, that we can do it. And I had a great time just last Thursday at our Party in the Parks ending over at Freedom Field. It was a lot of fun to see all the booths and the skateboard bash. I don't remember the official name. Apologies for that. In August, continue to meet with the legislative committee. We've been working to meet with our representatives, and also thinking through what we're focusing on. So you'll see that in the next couple agendas, but just wanted to flag that we did continue to meet in August. As many of you know, that I'm on now the chamber, on the board for the chamber. And so I wanted to flag that they have their Engage event tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure Councilmember Paddock was going to talk about it. And so I'm sorry if this was the case. It is Wednesday, and it is at Four Stitch Brewing, which our mayor just talked about a ribbon cutting later this month. So there's two events happening for the chamber there at Four Stitch Brewing. And these Engage events are open to, business members of our community who want to network and talk to each other. You do not have to be a member. Please join, please, attend to communicate with others. And then yesterday for Labor Day, I just wanted to say I attended a Labor Day event and got to meet in Everett. And I thought that was pretty fantastic. It was actually felt very weird. It was the first time I ever attended a labor event on Labor Day. I had never done that. And I mentioned it to two other people. And I guess, yeah, Everett seems to be one of the few places that does something like that. And I really appreciated that. So just thinking through things. And then the biggest thing, tomorrow, happy first day of school for all of us who have kids, for all those wonderful memories of the first day of school, but also a lot of patience for everyone driving tomorrow, extra time wherever you're going, or stay away. I'm gonna have to remember I can't cut through in front of Jackson High School to make the left onto Bothell Everett Highway through, that one neighborhood. I can't do it. I have to go around now. So just a reminder for everyone else as well as we start our school year. Thank you, everyone.
Councilmember Paddock.
I have a mouthful of gift chocolate. It'll go that way.
Come back to you.
Well, I expected it was gonna be, you guys were so quiet tonight. I
Some of
didn't
it
think
will
you were
come
still
back that
here.
way.
Excuse me. So I guess ditto on all of the fantastic events that happened over the last really 6 weeks, and incredible work by the entire staff, especially the Marcom folks. It's just unbelievable what those two individuals can help to coordinate and put together. I met with South County Fire a couple of weeks back, and again, kind of on another topic. I just want to say a couple of things that they called out. One was we love serving this community. We feel like this is the part that that really struck me. We feel like we are Mill Creek's fire department. And that wasn't the feeling that I necessarily had with the prior administration, if you will, but it's fantastic that the folks that are in Mill Creek protecting us feel like they are our fire department, which is just fantastic. Number two, met with Senator Lovick. He wanted to pass along.
Sean, I hate to interrupt. Can we have a motion to extend the meeting by 10 minutes, please?
Motion to extend?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any extensions? Or
Apologies
abstentions?
for
Thank you.
apologies for running over a little bit.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
He wanted to extend his personal and deep appreciation for continuing that Philippine consular work here in the city. Something obviously that he had an incredible part of creating, and that it's continued and grown. He said he is very proud to have worked so hard to bring that support to the community, and he's proud of our city to have continued to grow that support. He wanted me to pass that along. Let's see, the two other things, congratulations to Councilmember Duque on her appointment to that Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. That's what I was going to share, not steal your engaged thunder. Congratulations on that. I think brings a much needed perspective, marketing perspective to that board that is very focused right now on community engagement and getting the word out, and congratulations on that. And then the last thing, congratulations also to HR Manager Naomi Fay for all of the new hires. I now understand why Director Todd looks so relaxed. It's having that full. And I do want to wish Councilmember Steckler good luck on his trip to Miami, which is, I'm assuming, why he's going to be out, just based on the outfit that he has on today, and hope that that all goes well.
Okay, that brings us to audience communication, and I'll start with you, sir. I didn't recognize at the beginning of the meeting that you stepped out when we were doing audience communication, so I'll give you the first opportunity if you'd like.
It's getting close past my bedtime. Thank you for letting me speak in front of you. I'll be the bearer of bad news. I'm going to tell you what it's like to live in Mill Creek, what's going on out there. I mean, I've been through all this, but again, Peter Lalick, I live in Sunrise. I've lived in Mill Creek for 30 years. Kind of start cutting to the chase and stuff. You know, you have good neighbors, you have bad neighbors, and there's crazy situations out there. My neighbor has 5 cane Corsos. So if you say, huh? Okay, those dogs, I'll give you a brief rundown. The biggest thing, they can grow from 90 to 110 pounds. They run about 32 miles an hour. Very aggressive, very mean looking. They have a body of a Doberman. It's muscular, slim, cropped tail like a Doberman, and the head is a Mastiff, huge head. It has a bite of 700 pounds per square inch. That's heavier than most dogs. It can hurt you bad, and it can kill you. Now, one day I was mowing the lawn, and this neighbor walks that dog by me. You can't help but noticing it. And he stops, and I said, "What is that? What are you doing with that in this neighborhood, in Sunrise, and especially in Mill Creek?" And if you don't know Sunrise, we're right behind Mill Creek Elementary. So we have kids walking left and right to school. We have elderly people. We have other pets. Again, and this is kind of stupid. Think about this. You live there in your home, and like you're going to go out, and the first thing you do is look out the windows. And what am I looking for? Are those dogs that are out there? Okay, so one day I'm mowing the lawn, And I'm on the lawn, this dog comes shooting around the hedge that we have. And the dog's chasing me and I have to no, I wasn't mowing the lawn. I was wheeling out the garbage debris on Wednesday night. Because, you know, garbage pickup for us is Thursday. So this dog is coming around barking and growling, and I'm moving the cart to keep that dog from getting to me. So I finally yell out, somebody get your dog. So, and I say it's a kid, he's a 25-year-old boy. He comes over and he gets his dog. And I'm upset. And I did call the police and the officer came out and he, you know, I told him what happened. And then he did ask, he said, do you want me to go over there and talk to him? I said, I think so, yeah. So, and just to tell you what you're dealing with, there's 5 of them. And now, I don't know, you could say, I don't know if this guy can count this and that. I do have a security system on the house and, you know, the dogs are moving in this and you say 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. And so I have that. I notified the police support officer. I notified the Mill Creek Community Association, our association, because they're pretty tough. Okay, bottom line, nothing has been really done about this. So I'm just throwing it out, you know, you're the council, we're the city, hey, this is my situation. So it's insanity. So again, I'm mowing the lawn, I'm watering the lawn, I have to worry, but thank God we don't have any kids. They're old and they're gone. But the other kid, I feel sorry for those people. And a lot of neighbors are upset. And I know we all have jobs to do and all that. And I'm not second guessing. I'm just saying, let's get something done. Let's, you know, this is reality. I have to live like that, or the other people too. The funny part is this, until it happens, maybe some of those other people there don't know it or don't realize those dogs are there. And then those dogs get out. Then also, those dogs are in the house mostly all day. Once in a while, they're out in the backyard. So if we go out in the backyard, they greet us with the barking and all that, great. So then the 3 people that live there, and other times other people live there, they go away for the day. I assume, I guess, I'll say probably, those dogs are in the house for all day and then maybe let out in the evening for a while. So I don't know if you're an animal person or anything you know about dogs or any animal or a person, you treat them like that, they don't have a real good disposition. So they're creating a big major problem. And I don't know why they have 5 dogs. And I did research it, and I guess Mill Creek, we have an ordinance that says you can have 3 dogs per household. I guess that's what I read and, you know, looking up in the internet. I mean, that's nice. And I'm a dog lover. We had a dog, but come on, if you ask me, I think 2 is enough. 3, you're stretching it. And then you have people that go way beyond that. And I don't know why you would have those dogs there, a cane corso especially. That's, I mean, it's infringing on my rights. And I'm like, this is Mill Creek. So I just throw it out to you and say, hey, and then it was in the paper Sunday, July 16th on the Mill Creek Review or whatever it is. Loose dogs. PSO took a report of unregistered dogs running loose at 9:45 a.m. in the 3200 block of 150th Place, Sunrise, Seattle Hill Road. Well, but I also contacted, you know, the city and stuff in February. So again, I'm not speculating or wondering, but I know departments, when you talk or something is reported, it's documented and recorded. So if you go to this house, you're going to research that. And if it will tell you disturbances, fights, dog, whatever, you have a heads up when you go out there. So I'm just saying, again,
unregistered dogs running loose. A report.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm just saying, okay, it's a report. Let's get something done.
yeah. Chief, can you look into this? Martin, look into this, please. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? We're gonna need. Is anyone online gonna want to talk to the council as well? Well, Will's there, but he's not turning on his camera. Can we have a motion to extend the meeting by 5 minutes, please?
Motion to extend meeting by 5 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Tanis, 3 minute, name, address, 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Tanis Golbieski, 3005 146th Place Southeast. The 19 homes that are listed on that map are identified may have the capacity to provide opportunities for middle housing in the future. Because they are large enough, because the house takes up a smaller amount of the footprint, etc. Not we're taking it from you. A developer can buy it out from under you without your consent. Not the bulldozers are coming in a few weeks. I am not implying that it is fake news that this map exists or that those 19 homes are identified. I am implying that it is fake news that somebody can steal my neighbor's home out from under her when she has worked hard to provide it for her family. And I am stating that she was distraught because of this news and that other people were so distraught online that they felt the need to make threats. That's all.
Okay, anyone else like to address the council? Okay, hearing none, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:41 and reconvene next week. Thank you, everyone, and get some chocolate before you leave. I'm not sure it's still up here. There's more to go around.